What's going on, guys? Texas Platinum is back after kind of a break. Probably not the best time for us to have taken a month-long absence. Of course, the holidays were around, and we also were dealing with finals for some of the guys and vacations and whatnot. But the first initial signing day has come and passed. Coaching changes have occurred. Transfers have happened. The college football world has been put on watch with the Caleb Williams transfer announcement. So much has happened that we have missed and kind of need to catch up on. So if you're watching this video, this is kind of going to be a big all-encompassing video where we're covering a variety of topics. I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit longer because, again, we got to catch up on a lot of things, but expect a lot of good stuff from it nonetheless. And if you want, you can always look in the description below. Yes. We'll have timestamps so you can skip ahead at certain parts of the video if you don't want to hear certain things. But I mean, we'll be talking about the recruiting class. We'll be talking about transfers that we've gotten or ones that we're looking for. We'll be talking coaching changes, and then we're going to be talking a little bit of Oklahoma with all the turmoil that they got going on. So with that said, please like, comment, subscribe. If you're new here, if you're a regular here, love having you. Be sure to drop us a like, really helps us out. Matt Myers, how are you doing after said break? And let me know some initial thoughts that you have in regards to, I guess we'll start it off with the recruiting class that we just signed for the first signing day.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm doing well. I'm kind of sad that the college football season's about to end now. We only have one more game left, Georgia versus Bama, which is kind of a boring national championship. I don't like this SEC on SEC national championships that seem to happen more and more often now. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I've been doing well. I'm kind of bullish on this 2022 class that Texas signed. I mean, let's just start from the top. I mean, the two guys that we signed that we didn't have last time we filmed were Kelvin Banks and Terrence Brooks. I think Terrence Brooks, I think he's probably the best corner in the state. I mean, him or Denver Harris obviously are up there, but to flip a guy like that from Ohio State, a guy that, Ohio State's been such a good program as far as developing corners over the last couple of years. I mean, they've kind of taken that DBU title from us in some senses. So to get one back on Ohio State feels great because it seems like they're the ones that always come down to Texas and take our players. And I know Terrence is from Texas, but it's nice to flip one of their guys. And then also with Quinn Ewers and Ryan Watts, we'll talk about him in a little bit. It's kind of good to see us, landing some punches back at Ohio State. But yeah, Terrence Brooks is a guy that I think will probably play a lot next year in our secondary. Super talented kid. He's versatile. He can play safety or corner, but hopefully he'll just be a lockdown corner for us since those are harder to find. So really excited about Terrence Brooks. I mean, Kelvin Banks, that's our franchise left tackle right there. We finally got a signature, which is just so exciting. I don't think we've signed an O lineman like this in forever. And Kelvin Banks is a guy that I can't see him being a bust. And I know injuries and stuff can happen, but he's just such a good player. I watched him in the Under Armour Bowl. He played right tackle instead of left tackle, his natural position. And he still did really well. He looks the part. He looks like a college D1 lineman, and he's always good. I've never seen him get beat really whenever I've watched him. And that's definitely a first round potential guy right there. The hype is real, and I can't wait to see him get on campus because he's probably going to be starting for us at right tackle next year. So very excited to get him. Whenever somebody commits to Oregon, or I guess since Cristobal's gone, you can't really say that now, but Oregon has a good track record of O linemen, and Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams flipping over to Texas is a great sign. Cam Williams, my favorite player in the class, is also a beast. And I'm just so excited to see him. If you watch the state championship game, he put on a clinic, honestly. It was kind of crazy to see someone that big just moving so well in pass pro. His hands are so strong. If you're in front of him, he's going to knock you over. Like, it doesn't matter. I guess some of the D linemen can, get some leverage on him and kind of, fight back. But he's just very athletic, and he looks so comfortable back there at that size. which is crazy. And also, he just looks like a monster. I mean, he's the guy you need to be the first guy off
Palming
the
the helmet.
bus. Yeah.
That picture is legendary.
Yeah. So yeah, that pic, I don't know if y'all seen it, but there's a picture of him palming the helmet. I'm sure Trevor has it showing right now. But yeah, he's just a massive, massive human being. That's just what Kyle Flood wants in his O lineman. So now he's got this prospect to work with. And I think that it's going to be fireworks. I think Cam Williams will also be a first rounder. That's my hot take of the day. Cam Williams, first rounder, 3 or 4 years. Book it. And then other guys, I mean, Brennan Thompson, we all know about him, signed. BJ Allen. I'm thinking more about the guys that have been playing in these All-American Bowls. BJ Allen looked good. Justice Finkley actually looked really good in all the practices, apparently. He just kind of looks like a guy that I think can be an early contributor for us because he's kind of a higher floor, lower ceiling type of player. And you kind of see that in the All-American game and practices. He's hard to move, and he just looks like a college player out there. He's already built like he's been in a college program for a while now. So Finkley's a guy that may help us out next year because we need help on the edge, and also on the edge is Jamon Tapp, who's a guy that's really breaking out at the other All-American Bowl. They're practicing this week, and he's been lighting it up. Per all the reporters, they're saying that he's kind of a guy that's really stuck out. Him and Jalen Gilbo. So it's good to see, some of our players, our signees, flashing at these camps, not these camps, these All-American Bowls and All-American Bowl practices. It's really because they're playing against 5 stars, 4 stars, the best in the country, and if they're holding their own there, it's a pretty good sign. So all in all, I'm just really happy with the class that we've signed, and there's still some big targets on the board that Texas feels good about. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy that coming off 5-7, losing to Kansas, that Sark kind of nailed this class. I mean, there's still some work to be done. Devin Campbell, other guys, but I think a top 5 class is all you can ask for in these type of circumstances.
Absolutely. Yeah, other talking points is we managed to hold on to Malik Murphy, which was big. It was a bit of a scare right before he signed. He got kind of quiet for a while, but that stuff happens in recruiting. That's pretty typical, but nonetheless, definitely can be a very high ceiling type prospect. We'll see what happens with him and Quinn if he ends up staying around and getting developed. And I know that Arch, there's still reports of him being interested in Texas, and that Quinn isn't necessarily a deterrent for him. So that's a possibility that we have those 2 guys in the quarterback room with Malik. But yeah, Malik's definitely one of note, and good that we were able to hang on to him because you hate to see those guys go, so last minute. So that was big. Other key offensive line. I mean, that was really kind of the focus in this class. We were able to secure Nito, which was honestly kind of a surprise. Apparently, guy's kind of a quiet guy, at least when it comes to recruiting, and he just kind of out of nowhere that night that we're recording that one episode, like super late, is when he committed. And I don't think any of us were really expecting it. We were all thinking Devin Campbell at the time. But yeah, that's the big one. Malik Agbo, who I believe he was also in Oregon, right?
He's from Washington. Okay. I don't.
So not quite, but
yeah, but close enough.
But from the Northwest, so also a pretty big target. So yeah, and we'll talk about. Actually, yeah. So let's first talk about guys that we need to finish off with in terms of high school players, not transfers, but guys that we need to sign. Devin Campbell's definitely at the top of the list. Matt Myers, talk a little bit more about this battle between us and OU for Campbell, which has gone on way too long, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll say it because these 995, like the Inside Texases of the world, Horns 24/7, they won't say it, but I feel like Devin Campbell did sign with Texas in the early period. There was a Sark After Dark where Sark was out tweeting, it's never too late for Sark After Dark. And that was like right before the early signing period ended. So a lot. Everybody believes that it's Devin Campbell that signed with Texas. I mean, he's considered a heavy Texas lean.
Yeah.
So I assume that we should get him, but I don't want to, look like an idiot and he ends up signing with OU. But I feel really good about that. And Devin Campbell, he's gonna probably start for us if we get him next year. I mean, he's like a prototypical offensive guard. He's very athletic. Um, he's not the biggest O lineman, but he plays so physical, so fast. He seems like he's always the first guy off out of his stance, and he's a guy that could play D line if he wanted to as well. So I think he'd be our highest rated player in the class. What is he, a five? I think he's top 10 in the nation.
I
So
think he's behind Banks. Just barely though. Maybe no. I'm not sure. You'd have to look that up, but they're
yeah,
pretty neck and neck. Yeah. Wasn't he supposed to commit though, like at the Under Armour game or some bowl?
yeah, he was supposed to. Like, I think that was his plan at one time. Then he changed it, and it looked like he was going to commit early to Texas. Right before the early signing period, but then he pushed it back
Right.
to February 3rd, which I don't,
So on signing day, probably.
yeah, which I don't know why he would. If he did sign, it's kind of weird that he's going to wait so long. So maybe he didn't sign, but Texas feels good about that one. And yeah, I just he's probably he's absolutely the number one guy on the board. And think about Texas signing two five-star offensive linemen. When was the last time we've done that? I can't really recall. And I've been following
Never.
recruiting forever. Yeah, I don't think we ever have. Maybe '02, maybe I don't know, one of the '08 classes, one of those classes
I
did.
don't
But
know. Even then, I don't think we were bagging offensive linemen at the time, you know?
yeah, that's true. So, and this is exactly what we needed. I mean, our O line was kind of, at least for the first half of the year, like our biggest weakness. And they did improve. You got to give Kyle Flood and the players some credit. They did kind of find something towards the end of the season, but man, it was so bad at times. So we definitely, made the right moves and targeted a bunch of great O linemen and landed them. So that's the first step, and you got to develop them. But I think this O line haul, if you add in Devin Campbell, it's going to be. There's no reason that a lot of these guys shouldn't end up being high draft picks, and that should lead to Texas having really good O lines for Bijan and Quinn Ewers. So we just got to close out Devin Campbell and then get working on the 2023 class O lineman. You got to stack them up.
Yeah. Two more quick, I guess, questions or talking points before we transition over to transfers. Any other high school players that are on our radar that we should know about that we're hoping to get kind of last minute before the final signing day, or not really besides Campbell?
I don't think so. I think Larry Turner Goodin's a guy that's announcing January 8th. I think that's the date, but he's a guy that Texas seemed like, the big time leader for a while. But I think since we took Xavier Bryce and flipped Terrence Brooks, I don't know if he's a take at this point. I could be totally wrong, but I think he's a guy that if the staff really pushed for him, I think we would get him. He's a 4-star from California. So, I mean, I like his film. I hope he is a take. We need some good safeties on the roster. We're kind of thin there. So I hope we do, go after him and land him. But other than that, I guess Amari Abor, I know he committed to Ohio State, but he's still going to take visits, I believe. And I think if we really wanted to push there, we could maybe flip him. He's a guy that's almost a 5-star edge from Duncanville. Yeah. So, I mean, we need a lot of edge help, even though we've already gotten some guys like Tappan Finkley. It wouldn't hurt to get, a borderline 5-star guy that could probably contribute right away. So I don't think we're really going to go after anybody else besides that. I mean, there could always be those contingency late offers. They find a receiver gem, a diamond in the rough, and then throw an offer out there to maybe a 3-star receiver, which I feel like we probably should, or at least through the portal, go get one, because we definitely need to upgrade that receiver room after missing on Evan Stewart. But I think we'll do that through the portal. So yeah, I would say Devin Campbell and maybe Larry Turner Gooden would be the last two guys we take, because we already have a pretty big class. So I don't think we have much room left.
Yeah. A couple more things. One question I definitely wanted to ask before we kind of wrap this up. I know that at least in our last video, when Quinn Ewers committed and then ultimately signed with Texas, We really thought that that was going to be a big domino that fell in this class. Um, and now, in retrospect, about a month later, uh, I don't know if anyone can confidently say that that really happened, because honestly, Calvin Banks committed, a day before Ewers did. And that almost seemed like a bigger domino falling. Because we didn't really have any. I mean, we had some big flips, but those were on the defensive side of the ball, and I don't think I wouldn't think that that really was a result of Ewers per se. Same with some of these offensive linemen. I don't know if Ewers really pushed it over the top. Kind of, what are your? Would you say you agree with that? And kind of, what are your thoughts as to why Ewers didn't, draw that punch that we thought it was going to? Especially now with Caleb Williams going into the portal, like that's like the hottest talking point right now in college football. And the ironic part is Ewers, who I guess is higher ranked than Williams. That didn't seem to, that was more of just like a rock in a pond versus like a boulder, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of it was because Quinn Ewers committed to Texas so late in the process. If he had done it as soon as earlier in the Ohio State season, or as soon as it ended, as soon as that Michigan loss happened, I think that would have helped a lot more with guys like Evan Stewart and other receivers, maybe Armani Winfield. But yeah, it definitely seems like nothing really came of it like we wanted it to. But I do think that Quinn Ewers will still have an effect on transfer portal guys and some 2023 guys, especially guys like Arch Manning. I mean, people like to say that Quinn Ewers is going to scare off Arch Manning, but I mean, look at these other quarterback rooms that he's considering joining. I mean,
Yeah.
Bama, Georgia, they're a bunch of 5 stars everywhere. And that's how it's going to be if you're Arch Manning. You're going to go to a big time school that has talent everywhere. We have one 5-star quarterback, Quinn Ewers, who will only overlap 1 year with Arch. So I think Quinn Ewers being prolific here at Texas and putting up big numbers and making us good will help us really with the 2023 class. Guys like Jalen Hale, Jonte Cook, Arch Manning, Ruben Owens, just all around. People want to play with Quinn Ewers if the hype is real. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame that he signed with Ohio State and committed to Texas so late because, the talk of the town back in when he was a Texas commit early in 2020, that we were going to load up because everybody wanted to play with Ewers, but him going to Ohio State kind of threw a wrench into all that. He's a different class now, so it kind of killed that Ewers effect that we were hoping for. But I think it's still possible that I can pick up just kind of in a different way, through the transfer portal in the 2023 class, because he's going to have an effect. I mean, if he's throwing bombs and putting up video game numbers, I mean, people are going to want to join that. So, and it's a shame that Evan Stewart and guys like that didn't hop on board, but I think we'll be all right.
Last talking point before we transition into transfers. I feel like I've said that a couple of times now, but this is for sure the last one. Texas A&M, of course, signs, one of the best recruiting classes, maybe the best recruiting class, at least in modern history. Just a bunch of 5 stars, pretty much Bama level type stuff. Texas misses out, big time on, we aren't able to flip Evan. Harold Perkins ends up going to A&M, which was huge. Denver Harris, we weren't able to land him either. Kind of give me your thoughts as we wrap up recruiting here. What does this mean for Texas? How disappointing is it that we missed on some of these big targets? And then, where do we go from here?
Yeah, it sucks. It feels like A&M went all out on this cycle. I mean, props to them after Texas joining the SEC. They had to make a power move like this, to try to keep posturing to be, the new power program in the state. And they went out and did that, got all these recruits, Walter Nolan, have Evan Stewart, Denver Harris, Bryce Anderson's the guy that we wanted and they got from us. So, yeah, I feel like all the stars aligned for them this cycle. They definitely out-recruited us in a lot of those head-to-head battles. I mean, Evan Stewart going to A&M's, that one, it's like so bad that it's kind of funny. Like Evan Stewart going to A&M is kind of funny. That's the guy that Texas should have had without a doubt. But Evan's a character, and he was always gonna, I guess, do his own thing and kind of you know, make his own decision. So yeah, that one kind of stings because that's the type of guy that we needed so desperately for next season. Because if you pair Evan Stewart and Xavier Worthy, it would have been fireworks. So
Mhm.
I'm curious to see. People will always say that Evan Stewart's going to put up no numbers in Jimbo's offense, which might be true. I just kind of want to see how it unfolds. Maybe Evan Stewart's numbers versus um, Brennan Thompson or something like that. So yeah, that one sucks. Harold Perkins also. I mean, that guy was always going to be a Aggie or a LSU commit. I felt like the staff tried to get in there late, but that's a guy that he just always felt like a SEC guy. It's A&M or LSU. So that one hurts. Denver Harris also hurts. I mean, that one's where it's like, okay, let's relax. Let's
Yeah.
let's let's be real here, because I remember when his friend Shadrack Banks was like, he left the program of A&M, and then all the players were, you know, clowning, Banks for doing that, and talking trash. And then Denver got all mad at Leon O'Neal and others, and they were all like, just they were not feeling A&M. And then he ends up taking a visit to A&M late in the process after being, not high on them at all. And then of course they surge immediately and sign Denver Harris, which is a guy that was openly like trashing A&M earlier in the cycle. So it's kind of crazy how that happened. But I just think they went all out this cycle. They had good alignment from the top to the bottom. NIL deals lined up for sure. We need to definitely try to match those in the future, because I don't see why they would stop if they're out here getting these multi-year huge NIL deals, getting the number one class. And it works so well for them this class, and it's legal now. I don't know if they're doing it legally or under the table, but it's definitely working, at least right now. So it'll be interesting to see how they do next class, if they'll, peel it back some or try to keep going pedal to the metal. So yeah, they definitely signed a really good class, and it's kind of crazy, but we'll see. We'll see how Jimbo develops these guys and if they all stay together over the next couple of years. The transfer portal is kind of crazy now. People can leave whenever they want. These players have all the power now, so
Mhm.
we'll see how it unfolds over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Yep. Texas will definitely have to bring their A game going forward. Transfers. We'll talk a little bit about targets that we have, as well as a big transfer that we got outside of Quinn Ewers and Ryan Watts. Speak a little bit to Watts Myers. What are we getting out of him?
Ryan Watts is a player that I liked in high school. He was an OU commit for a while, then he flipped to Ohio State, signed with them. But I love tall cornerbacks, and I think he's like, what
Mm-hmm.
is he, 6'3"?
6'3", yeah.
Six
Big.
three, yeah. And he's also pretty fast and physical. He just looks like a really good athlete out there. And some of the highlights I was watching of him, and I think he actually led Ohio State, or at least tied for the interception leader on their team. He was kind of plagued by injuries this year. It kind of ruined his. He's starting to break out a little bit, and then this injuries kind of just you know curbed all that. But I think he's going to be a good player for us. I think he'll probably start, I would say, at corner next season for us. I'm trying to think of who would beat him out. I mean, I think Deshaun Jameson will have his work cut out for him to beat out Ryan Watts, because
Mm.
Jameson's a good returner, but he's always been kind of capped off right now, at least at corner. He hasn't really
Yeah.
taken that next step that we wanted him to, because he was showing
Last season
potential.
wasn't very good for him.
Right, exactly.
I think
So
2020 was, but yeah, last season definitely struggled a little bit more.
yeah, because he shows the signs, but he hasn't really put it together for us like we wanted him to. But I'm happy he's back, because he can help us for sure, and he'll definitely give us good depth. He might start for us next year, but I feel like it might be Ryan Watts and Jade Barron at our two starting corners, because Jade is a guy that everybody speaks, glowingly about, that
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be a dude for us, and he looks good whenever he plays. So I feel like it's those two guys going forward. Also, you have Terrence Brooks in there now. So our cornerback room is definitely getting upgraded, and that's what we need. So hopefully Ryan Watts can be a key contributor here in his first year, because I think he's only going to be a sophomore. So he's young. So he'll have a couple of years of eligibility here at Texas.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about targets. Who are some guys that we're currently going after that we feel like we have a good chance with.
Yeah, I would say Isaiah Nayor from Wyoming. He's a receiver that put up like ridiculous numbers, like Xavier Worthy numbers, maybe even better than Xavier Worthy. As a freshman, he was like a 2-star out of Arlington Lamar,
Mm-hmm.
but he was just he for whatever reason he was maybe a late bloomer or something, but he just tore it up at Wyoming, and he's in the transfer portal. So the thing is, we may have offered him too late, which sucks. He's a guy that um, he's looking at USC, Tennessee, I think, are his two other top options, and then Texas. I think he's planning on visiting Texas soon, but he has to make a decision soon because with classes starting up for the spring semester, you don't want to, wait too long and miss out on certain schools. So hopefully that's the guy that we can get. I mean, if we just see like Josh Heupel and Lincoln Riley after him, you know that he's probably a really good receiver, and then the numbers don't lie either. And if you watch the film, he moves really well. He's pretty tall actually, but he plays kind of like super, like he's got breakaway speed as well as the size, and he can make jump balls. He can make plays, So I think we absolutely need to get Isaiah Nayor. And if not him, I think we definitely need to try to, tamper or something to get like JoJo Earl or Agier Hall, whatever. Some of these Alabama receivers that are stashed away in the depth chart that Sark and Banks and Flood have relationships with. We need to go get some of them because if we give viewers like one or two more receivers with Xavier Worthy and a decent O-line, it's going to be absolute fireworks. So that's what we need to be working to do, and I think our staff is. I'm interested to see after the championship game if we see any Bama guys enter the portal. I've heard like on message boards and stuff that Jaleel Billingsley from Alabama would be a guy that Texas is after right now, trying to get him transfer, but that could just be, made up. But you never know. I feel like the fact that we haven't really seen much movement at receiver, a position that we really have a dire need, to upgrade in talent, kind of might be a sign that there are some guys that are still playing that we're going to go after the national championship. So fingers crossed that we at least get Nayor. But I want two receivers to add to that room because outside of Xavier Worthy, it's just kind of a crapshoot. I mean, Marcus Washington has improved, but you can't rely on him to be like a game breaker. He can be a good possession guy, a great blocker, but we need a couple more game breakers, and we need to get them through the portal because we kind of fumbled the bag this year in recruiting with Andre Coleman. So, yeah.
Yeah. Any other transfers that are of note that we should discuss?
Yeah, two safeties. I think Brandon Joseph from Northwestern. He's a All-American safety. I want to say he's from Texas. I think he's from College Station actually, but I think he's a guy that we probably won't get either. I feel like we also got in too late on him as well. But another safety from Central Michigan, Devonnie Reed, entered the portal, and we were on that like instantly. So he's like a 5th-year senior. He's super experienced or something. Maybe just a 4th-year senior, but he's really experienced, a really productive player. He's very physical, and I think he was an All-American in that conference, or all MAC or something like that. I know he had a pretty decorated resume when I was looking at it. So, and I watched this film. He looks really good. He's kind of a smaller safety, but he definitely plays big. He's physical and he can play the ball. And we need to upgrade at safety absolutely as well. Those are probably safety, wide receiver, edge, I would say, are like our most important, and D tackle, our most important positions that we need to upgrade through the portal, and maybe linebacker too. So we have quite a few holes, but I think safety might be the biggest hole. Yeah. So we'll see. But I think reading the tea leaves that Devonnie Reed, there's a good chance that we get him here at Texas, which would be big time for our defense.
Awesome. Any final transfer thoughts before we transition over to new coaching hires?
No, I don't really know of any other targets. I know we went after Jared Verge, the DN from Albany, but we were in too late on that, so that's not happening, which sucks because we need edges bad. But I'm sure more names will pop up here in the next couple of days or in the next couple of weeks because I just feel like time is of the essence for the spring semester starting up right here pretty soon. So I think we'll learn more in the next couple of days.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that our staff has been a little less aggressive with this transfer portal thing, but I I guess that's just not their style. They're more of a development, but the only problem with that is we just were 5-7. We can't afford to have another. I mean, we can, I guess, take a bit of, like an 7-8 win season is like okay, but that's not going to be good for recruiting, because that's been our issue for now the past two coaching staffs with Strong and Herman is, start out hot in terms of recruiting, but if you don't produce results relatively quickly, not only are your fans, disappointed, but a lot of recruits are like, starting to wonder if it's ever going to happen. So yeah, pressure's kind of on, and transfers are a good way to pretty quickly ensure that you got players that can actually, compete for a starting job. Unlike some of these younger guys, which is a little bit more of a roll of the dice and typically involve more development. But yeah, let's transition into new UT coaching changes. On top of an already busy time with signing days and transfers and whatnot, it's also a bit of a coaching carousel. Stan Drayton, our pride and joy, unfortunately, has left, but not unfortunately, fortunately for him, has left the University of Texas, is now the head coach at Temple, which is, fantastic for him. Temple's a good starting place for a head coach. A lot of good coaches are hired from Temple, in my opinion. So good for him on that. And then, of course, Andre Coleman got the boot after not really producing, at least, especially on the recruiting front. I don't know how he was as a developer. I guess he was, Xavier Worthy was great, but I don't know if that was so much coaching as it was just Xavier Worthy being great. But yeah, both of those vacancies required replacements, and Texas kind of swung for the fences and was able to connect. Tashard Choice as our running back coach was a really big hire on top of Brendan Marion as our wide receiver coaching passing game coordinator, which may even be a bigger hire, honestly. He may even be a little bit of, well, definitely more of a hotter commodity, especially after his really prolific offense at Pitt, and then Jordan Aston winning the Blitnikoff. So Myers, how about you go ahead, kind of give your thoughts, and then I'll give mine. Let's talk a little bit about these two coaching hires. How do we feel about them? And of course, we don't know a ton about either of them, as they're both, younger coaches, very much younger coaches. So there's only so much to really know, but kind of what you're thinking.
Yeah, first of all, salute Stan Drayton. Thank you for bringing us Bijan. I think he's going to do well at Temple. It was interesting seeing how Brandon Harris, our director of recruiting, was kind of rumored to be on a Temple with him as like a director of player personnel over there. But ultimately, he stays at Texas, which I think is probably a good thing. I'm not sold on Brandon Harris yet, but we'll see. I think he's got a lot of potential as a lead recruiter, kind of like Brian Carrington was. But yeah, Drayton to Temple. That was kind of, there'd always been smoke that he'd leave, so it was good to see him finally get that head coaching job. Andre Coleman, that Sark keeping Andre Coleman in the first place was always kind of puzzling. He went after some guys like Holman Wiggins, Simmons, the receiver coach from OU at the time, and he kind of struck out there, I guess, and ended up settling on Andre Coleman, and it hurt us this year. I mean, we lost so many recruitments over the past 2 years at receiver that we should have won. And so I'm glad that Sark and the rest of, our administration realized we needed to upgrade at that position with Brennan Marion. I mean, I think Brennan Marion's probably, I'm kind of shocked that we got him, because he's the guy that had offensive coordinator offers at certain schools. So the fact that he chose a receiver coach here at Texas and passing game coordinator is a great sign. He's a guy that, I mean, obviously he's known for his go-go offense, which is like two backs, which is really cool. If you go watch some of the film and like the threads on Twitter of it, it's really interesting. It's definitely cutting edge. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that besides, the offenses that he's put out. So I hope that we do implement some of that here at Texas. I'm more excited about him as a receiver coach. I mean, as far as a recruiting standpoint, because Andre Coleman, I'm hoping we went from rags to riches because Coleman was probably the worst recruiter you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And Marion's supposed to be a guy that can relate to anybody. I know he hasn't really had the opportunities to recruit at a big time school with, a big time logo on his chest. But I mean, I think he'll definitely do well. I've listened to quite a few of his interviews and read up on how the players at Pitt liked him. And he seemed to be like definitely a player's coach. And he's just a guy that seems like people will gravitate towards. So, and also the biggest thing about him is Margin Hooks, the famous receiver trainer in Dallas, who trains everybody, Evan Stewart, Marvin Mims, all the good players that are receivers go to Margin Hooks. And this was Margin Hooks' endorsed hire was Brendan Marion. So that's a great sign that, it's kind of you got the blessing from Margin Hooks, a guy that facilitates so many good receivers. I mean, Jonte Cook's probably his best player in this class that he trains. So that's a great sign as far as recruiting. You got to get the trainers definitely on the side of the staff. So that's a good move. And Jordan Addison, I mean, Brendan Marion I'm not going to say he produced a Bolitnikoff winner, but I mean, he coached up Jordan Addison, who won the Bolitnikoff. And that's a guy that, if you go on the message boards on Inside Texas, all we're talking about is Jordan Addison going to portal to Texas and follow Marion. I mean, that'd be great. That'd be ideal.
Awesome. Everything that I read says that not going to happen, that he doesn't really have an interest in, which I don't blame him. If you just want an award at a school, why do you want to immediately move on, but
we need to get some of those Clarkfield Collective donors to
it'd be nice.
An NIL deal.
I love that. Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe never say never. That'd be a great addition. I mean, that alone, you throw him in with Marion, that'd make it worth the hire if you just get Jordan Addison. But that's probably a pipe dream. So you can't really bank on that. But the fact that he produced a Bolitnikoff winner is an absolutely great recruiting pitch that he could sell to receivers. And I mean, if you look at Sark the year before with Devontae Smith, Bolitnikoff, and Heisman, then the following year, Brendan Marion, Bolitnikoff. I mean, there's no reason why we can't go out and get Jalen Hale, Jonte Cook, and we should be able to cherry pick receivers across the country. I mean, just based on the pedigree of these two guys, Sark and Brendan Marion, with their receivers over the last couple of years, there's no reason that we can't go out and get these guys. So I think that's a great hire at receiver coach. I'm more excited about that than Tashard Choice. But Tashard Choice is a guy I didn't really know who he was, if I'm going to be honest. I remember him as a Cowboy, but I didn't even realize he was coaching at Georgia Tech. But then the fact that I always thought it was weird that Jahmyr Gibbs, the star running back, highly ranked out of high school, committed to Georgia Tech. He's now transferring to Bama, but he's a great player that Texas was after for a while. And the fact that Tashard Choice got him to go to Georgia Tech shows he's a pretty good recruiter, because that guy should have definitely been at Bama or Georgia or one of the big boys, and now he is. But I mean, if you go back and watch his YouTube video of like his halftime speech when he was a player at Georgia Tech, it's kind of insane. He's definitely a motivator. I mean, we need to throw that in the description or something, because that'll get your blood flowing, and that's what you need out of a running back coach. You need to be a volume recruiter. You can't just go out and get Bijan and then just settle on that. You need to be a guy that can go and help and get O-linemen, help and get receivers, help and go get defensive backs, a guy that can, really be versatile on the trail. Because as a running back coach, you can't coach up that much. I feel like you coaching running backs, you can only go so far, and it's a lot more of it is focused on recruiting. So I'm hoping Choice can be a volume recruiter. The fact that Lincoln had him and we stole him was also kind of funny from USC. But honestly, like I'm rattling off all these things that y'all have probably already heard. We don't really, like Trevor was saying, we really don't know about these guys. These are two up and comers. Which the staff wanted to get younger and, more energetic on the recruiting trail, and just have some younger personnel in Moncrief. But we don't know. We don't know how they're going to do here at Texas. I mean, they passed the eye test for sure. They have some good resumes behind them, but we'll see. Well, hopefully in the next couple of months, we see some recruiting and we get some reviews on them from the players. That's what I'm more concerned about, is recruiting and how they are able to relate to some of these prospects. So the jury's still out, but I think that it's looking like two really good hires. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I was definitely excited to learn more about them, both of which Brendan Marion, I feel like I knew a little bit more than Choice, but everything that I've seen from Choice so far, I've been pretty excited about. Most notably, his recruiting prowess. Like you said, I think that's probably one of the most key, traits that you look for. Not necessarily the most key trait that you look for in a running back coach, but it's very important. Being that, like you said, it's a position where coaching is definitely involved in. Is critical, but maybe not quite as much as some other position groups. Um, but yeah, just him and him being able to kind of share his player perspective as an NFL player, I think is always important. And just these young, high energy guys. That's really the way that you see it across the college football landscape. I mean, even the NFL, really. That's just kind of how both leagues are transitioning to a much younger, more dynamic coaching personnel. That the focus has shifted to that direction, especially getting former players. I mean, you look at like Oklahoma and DeMarco Murray. That's just one of many comparisons. So I think Choice is going to be, a great guy that we have at Texas, and then of course, Marion with, he doesn't have a ton of recruiting experience, and I know that we said like he should be a good recruiter because the players that he's developed in this offense that he's engineered basically. I expect him to be. He, like you said, just about anything should be better than what Coleman was, at least in terms of recruiting. But I'm just super excited for the development that he brings and everything. To me, he screams, head coach in the making. And this is probably going to be a quick stop for him. But I think he sees our receiving. Well, he sees Xavier Worthy, I think, and it's like, oh boy, this guy I can turn into, an absolute legend. And just off of him alone, I think he sees Worthy as, a potential, like a Devonta Smith type Heisman winning, receiver. I think. I know that we talk about Bijan and we talk about Quinn, but I mean, Worthy, I think, can be, maybe the best of all of them, really. And with a coach like Marion, that's something I see, and that he might use it as kind of like a jumping point from there to get a high OC job, or just immediately go into head coaching, because I truly think he has the chops for it based on everything that I've read. So yeah, two great hires. I'm very glad that Texas decided to go young here, up and coming, and both guys I believe are former players. So I always kind of lean that way because, like I said, that's kind of the way coaching is going these days. Last thing on coaching that we want to touch on, we'll be kind of brief about it, but it's permeated the Texas fan base for all too long. Gary Patterson, our friend from TCU, he's there's been some smoke that he's going to come to Texas in some capacity. What that is, we don't know. He may not even know at this point. I'm sure they've been talking about it, but Myers, what's the latest on the Gary Patterson smoke?
So I had someone close to the program tell me that it's a done deal and this is happening, and he's going to be an analyst or something, not a coach. But that was like months ago now, and nothing's happened. So I'm guessing it was not a done deal. And it's just, I guess the longer it goes on, the less likely it looks. Maybe he's waiting to see all of his options for the entire season to
I
end and
think
let all the
so.
dust settle.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
Because I mean, the idea of him coming to Texas and being a analyst seems like such a just low level job for a guy that's so qualified to be
Yeah.
even a head coach at a lot of programs, not
Oh,
just a coordinator.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think if only way he would do that is if he's just kind of tired and just wants to, settle down and have a laid back job where he's not having to recruit or,
Live in Austin.
yeah, and live in Austin. He can advance his music career here.
Forgot
So,
about that.
so yeah, I mean, I would love to have him because if we're being honest, Gary Patterson has more head coaching
Oh,
experience than Steve Sarkisian by like a long shot.
absolutely.
He's probably a better head coach than Sark at this
Yeah,
moment. At this moment. Now
absolutely.
we hope Sark develops, but you can't deny Patterson's resume as far as developing players, identifying players, and putting out winning teams. I know he's kind of burnt out here in the end, and he got fired from TCU, but still, he's got so much experience, so much knowledge that would just be so great to have in Moncrief with Sark, just to be a second, set of eyes in that program. And Patterson's, he knows the Big 12, so it would just be a home run thing to add him. I know it wouldn't have a huge role on paper as an analyst, but I know whenever he would speak in those meeting rooms that people would listen, because I mean Gary
Oh, yeah.
Patterson's definitely kind of a legend, at least at TCU, and he's a very well respected coach. So I hope we get him. I think there's still a good chance, but the longer it goes on, the less confident I feel. But I mean, no one really knows at this point, so fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. If you guys follow Orange Bloods at all, Jeff Ketchum and maybe other people, but at least I heard it from him, proposed the idea of Gary Patterson being basically the college football equivalent of a general manager, basically director of players, kind of the lead recruiting guy, basically second in charge to Sark, operating a different part of the department. I think that's a great idea. I was pretty excited to hear about that. I don't know if that's a possibility. I think that the college football landscape will probably shift in that direction, especially if it continues with, NIL and the influx of money to college football. You should be able to afford bigger staffs and stuff like that. I think that could be a compelling thing. We'll have to see if our staff would be open to that, because I think a lot of head coaches have too much ego to, even entertain that thought of like, oh, let me bring in, a guy with even more experience than me and let him basically run recruiting and stuff like that. So I don't know if Sark would even be open to something like that, but, from a fan perspective, that would be awesome just to have that guy analyzing talent and being second in charge and bringing his wealth of knowledge to the program. I think would be amazing. But yeah, something to look out for, obviously. And, hopefully that smoke isn't fading out too much and that there's still definitely fire at the end of it.
Yeah, I want him. I want him badly. So
Oh yeah.
I hope we get him.
He's like a goat, basically, I don't know. He's not the GOAT, but I mean, in Texas football, the state of Texas, I mean, that guy is, I mean, he's a legend, definitely top three. Yeah, top three all-time coach in Texas. I'm willing to go out on a limb on that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. Last part of the video, we gotta relish in this, because this doesn't happen. OU, of course, OU always sucks, regardless of the day, time, or whatever. But OU, for the first time in a long time, seems to be actually encountering some adversity in their program, which is so refreshing, because Oklahoma's just been riding this wave of greatness since basically the last 2 decades, essentially. It's been difficult for Texas fans, and yeah, especially while we've been down for the past decade plus. But so much has happened. We really haven't touched on OU at all on our channel since basically since the Red River game. So real quick, we're gonna just kind of give our thoughts. Let's start from the beginning. Lincoln Riley going to USC. Quick thoughts, Myers. How did you feel when you heard that?
I was so shocked. It blew my mind. It blew everybody's mind.
We were texting LSU the night before. We were like, oh shit, he's going to LSU. And apparently not.
Yeah, he didn't want any of that. He didn't want any of that SEC smoke. He's just too scared. He's too much of a coward to go make that move with Texas and OU. He didn't want any part of that. Yeah. And it's hard to blame him. I mean, he was kind of burning out at OU, and not to say like he was losing a lot, but it's programs like OU and Bama and Ohio State. If you go like 5 or 6 years and you can't get over that hump and you're close, people get tired. And like, it sounds crazy to say, but I feel like if he didn't get it done next year, that OU would start calling for his head. And
Yeah.
that's just kind of how it works. I mean, Georgia did the same thing with Mark Richt and coaches that got close but never over the hump. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of feel like he maxed out that program, and he jumped right when, like, it was honestly a really good smart move on his part. I mean, looking at it now, with as the dust has settled, I think it was really smart go out to the Pac-12 and build up USC into a national power again and have absolutely no competition at all with Mario Cristobal going to Miami. There, that whole West Coast is just wide open, and
Yeah.
USC has the potential to be a top 2, top 3 program in the country, and he's just going to hog up all that California talent. It's kind of funny. He was recruiting for USC on OU's dime with all these guys, Malachi Nelson, Makai Lemon, all these California kids that
Yeah.
he just immediately flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Raleek Brown's another one. And he's going to clean up that state. I think the jury is out on Lincoln, though. I don't know if he can build a program up. He's never shown the ability to do so. I mean, he inherited a Ferrari with Bob Stoops. He was never been a head coach before that. So it's kind of, new uncharted waters for him, because USC's pretty bad right now. If you watch them, they're
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not good at all,
Yeah.
despite the talent that they do have. So he's going to have to get something, get that program, built from the ground up. So we'll see if he can do that. But I think he definitely has a lot going for him with that offense and his ability to recruit. And Caleb Williams might end up following him. So I think it could be fireworks for USC, but it's just great because it's all at OU's expense. And it's funny to see us blue blood like OU just get poached like a G5 school and just get ripped apart through the transfer portal, losing all their coaches, recruiting's tanked, everything. So it's crazy, man. I never would have expected this, but it kind of shows that OU while it's a big time job, I guess it's not a forever job, which is kind of hilarious to say.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely shocking to see it happen, and definitely set the college football world on fire. I was definitely very surprised because he seemed, the fact that he hadn't left yet made me think that, oh crap, this guy's a lifer. This guy's like, the second Bob Stoops that, stuck around for forever, basically. But yeah, looking back, yeah, no, you're kind of right, because this past season, in all regard, even though it was a very good season for them, it was a disappointment. They're supposed to be a shoe in for the playoff, and likely make the championship game. A lot of people had them ranked number 2, you know, and even though they won a lot of games, not very convincingly, outside of the bowl win that they just had, but that wasn't even under Lincoln Riley. That was Stoops, ironically. So yeah, that was definitely big, but it makes you wonder, like, Oklahoma's, such a fantastic football brand, but like Nebraska, they're in a state that's, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I know that OU's a bigger blue blood than Nebraska is, but I wonder if, like, if this program finally hits some adversity, and they haven't really in their history, like, they've been pretty consistently good. At least in my lifetime, they've been fantastic, actually. But I wonder if they just have a few down years and don't fully recover, if they turn into like a Nebraska. And I mean, they could be saying the same stuff about us. If you're a Sooner fan, I'm sure you're livid that I'm even bringing this up. Texas is more comparable to a Nebraska, blah, 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 blah. But I don't know. So some food for thought, and I'm curious how you feel about that, Myers. But after you comment on that, I guess let's talk a bit about Venables. How do you feel about him as well?
You're right. It's kind of crazy how OU has just never really had a down period. They just always get their hires right
Yeah,
and just have,
they're fantastic. So sound.
yeah, Switzer, Stoops, Lincoln. Who was the other one? I don't even remember. Another, I forget. I was
Before Switzer?
yeah.
Oh god,
Yeah,
what's his
Bud
name?
Wilkinson.
Wilkinson. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
legend.
So they just always, I mean, they're probably the most consistent college football program ever. I mean, Bama's had more down years than OU.
Ohio State.
Ohio State might be the other
They're
one.
comparable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people say OU is the greatest program of all time. Not, I mean, not quite. Probably the most consistent program of all time. But yeah, you would think that they're due to miss on a hire and have like 10 bad years. I know they were pretty bad in the 90s, but that was kind of the outlier. That was the fluke. So um, I don't think that they'll become a Nebraska, mainly because, and I know it sounds crazy to say. I mean, Texas is becoming Nebraska now. People will say, but Texas will always get top five classes. I mean,
Yeah.
just being in Austin, Texas, and
Yeah.
then being the number one brand in college football
Right.
with all this money behind us and NIL now, Texas will never be irrelevant. I mean,
Right.
everybody's doing horns down.
Yeah.
Kansas State fans, at Cincinnati
Cincinnati.
fans were doing it. So Texas will
Ridiculous.
always be the Lakers or Yankees in terms of brand. We may
Yeah.
not have the championships recently, but we'll always be in the mix and we'll always get talent. OU is kind of in that same department where they're such a big brand. They're a national brand and they're they're closer to DFW than we are.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. They
they
own
if they
DFW.
yeah, as long as they just run DFW, that's enough talent in that region to, you know, build good roster. So OU's not going anywhere, I don't think. However, I think Brent Venables may have been a bad hire. I'm old enough to remember them saying fire Venables,
Yeah.
this defense sucks. And while he did have a program rolling at Clemson with all that talent, I mean, he was in the ACC. I mean, he's never been a head coach before. Yeah, at least Sark had experience at USC Washington, but it just, I don't know. And it probably is a good hire because whenever it's OU making hires, you give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
He is the Sooner, and that's what they wanted, like a guy that's a Sooner lifer
Hmm.
that'll stay. And after being stabbed in the back by Lincoln, they wanted a guy like that, kind of like Bob Stoops lineage.
Yeah.
But I just I don't I'm not confident in this hire. I mean, and it kind of makes me understand how OU fans felt whenever we hired Charlie and Tom Herman. We were like, yeah, we're back. We'll just wait till next year. Now
Yeah.
they're doing that, and I'm just like, oh, so this is how we look.
Yeah.
They look like fools, so this is how we've looked. That's kind of why whenever we hired Sark, I've been very quiet. I'm just like, show me.
Yeah.
So I hope that Venables, and I think that he's not going to be a great hire for them. He's an underwhelming resume. I mean, he's a good DC at Clemson for 5-10 years. He got fired at OU. I just don't see it. Levy at offensive coordinator may have been a good hire. I mean, it it's hard to tell. I mean, they looked really bad against Baylor the other night, and Ole Miss's bowl game, but I'm not sold at all. I mean, I what do you think, Trevor?
Yeah, I may be a little more optimistic than you about the hire because, in my opinion, like unless you did what got done to you and poach a big time coach from somewhere else, uh, who else would he hired? I think he was probably the best candidate that was readily available. Unless you poach someone, and got like a Lane Kiffin or something like that. I think that would have been a fabulous hire, but I think Lane has, you know, set his eyes on higher places until he gets those offers. But um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, kind of like what I was saying about college and NFL football transitioning over to younger coaches. Additionally, coaching is transitioning in both leagues to offensive coaches. You pretty much rarely see defensive coaches in the NFL and in college football that are head coaches outside of like a Belichick or those outliers. But especially the younger ones and the newer coaches are all very offensive minded. And hiring a defensive coach, I could see that. With the transition to the SEC, I can sell that in my head to myself that that's a good move. And the fact that he has helped recruit and has been around such elite talent at Clemson means that he has the eye for talent. And I feel even though he doesn't have any head coaching experience, I mean he was the number 2 guy at Clemson for so long and learned how to build a program, learned how to run a program from Dabo. Um, I feel more optimistic than you. I know some Texas fans additionally are more like kind of down on this hire. I don't think it's going to be bad. And honestly, I have faith. As much as it pains me to say it, I have a lot more faith in, in the OU administration than a lot of other ones, including our own. In college football, they just seem to get everything right all the time and seem to be very aligned. So I'm not terrified by this hire by any means, but I'm more I'm more open to it, I think, than a majority, but I'm not like OU fans that are, pumping their chest like we're aligned, we got our guy, all that stuff. I I'm definitely, kind of in show me mode, but I think there's a potential for him to, because like you said, this program, well, until it, everyone transfers out of it, but the foundation I feel like is laid pretty well, almost as well as it can be. You're going to have a lot of player turnover, which we'll touch on right after this, but I feel confident in their foundation, and I feel like, Venables has earned and garnered enough experience to be able to run a program. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, just our thoughts, but yeah. With that said, now, Caleb, well, we definitely got to discuss Caleb Williams going out. Thoughts on that? I feel like it was kind of just a matter of time, to be honest. I was starting to wonder, if he would stick around because he had for so long. But how do you feel about Caleb going away, and then Dylan Gabriel pretty much immediately staking his claim?
Yeah, man, this is weird, isn't it? This is the new college football, and I want to be honest, this transfer portal, NIL stuff is kind of killing college football, at least right now, until we get a better grip on it. It's insane. You can't recruit these players and keep them at your program, and
Yeah.
they're no longer really amateurs. You're being paid now. They're semi-pro, and you can't sign them to contracts or anything. They can leave whenever they want. They have all the power, and I just don't think that's healthy for the sport. So even though that it's been really good for us, I mean, we have all the money behind us. We got Quinn Ewers. Caleb Williams is leaving OU, so that's like really helping us out a lot. But I just think in general for the sport, it's not good. But yeah, Caleb Williams is leaving Oklahoma, and I remember leaving the Cotton Bowl on the second Saturday of October, and just thinking, man, Caleb Williams
Yeah.
just
2 more
single-handedly,
years of this.
yeah, how like we're not going to beat OU the next 2 years.
No.
OU just pooped out another Heisman quarterback.
Yep. I felt the same way. It was
And
awful.
I'm so relieved that he's leaving, because Dylan Gabriel is a solid player, but he's absolutely not Caleb Williams or
No.
Kyler Murray or Baker
No.
Mayfield or Jalen
No.
Hurts.
No.
So it's
Yeah.
good. It's good to see them coming down to earth now, because I was like, oh my God, another 3 years of this or 2 years of this, it would have just been absolutely ridiculous. So Quinn Ewers versus Dylan Gabriel in the Cotton Bowl. I like our chances there. Although Gabriel is no slouch, he has a pretty good arm. And he did some good things at UCF. But man, it's crazy how Caleb Williams just left like that. I mean, he seemed locked in. It's kind of, the timing's kind of weird. It was kind of later than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
It seems like the last second he decided to enter the portal. And the question now is he going to go to USC or Ole Miss or Georgia? I'm sure there's a bidding war going on for sure, and I'm sure his dad and all them are trying to get as much out of him as he's worth, because Caleb Williams is a franchise changer. I mean, if Ole Miss gets Caleb Williams and Zach Evans, which is apparently they're probably going to get Zach Evans.
Yeah.
I don't see why that team can't win the West. Or
Yeah.
I know Bama's stacked next year, but that team's going to be in the playoff mix without a doubt,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to outscore pretty much everybody. So,
Yeah.
and if USC gets them, I mean, that's going to be fireworks too. You have Lincoln System just there in LA with Caleb Williams, and then I'm sure Mario Williams will also follow. He actually said, I think, that he's going to follow Caleb Williams wherever he goes. So
yeah, he did.
So that's insane. It's just the new era of college football. But I'm just so curious where he's going to end up at. And but yeah, and it's not just Caleb Williams. I mean, other people are bolting from OU. OU's getting just absolutely gutted by the transfer portal. I mean, Rattler and Stogner, I think they're both at South Carolina now.
Mm-hmm.
and then Hazelwood's at
Hazel.
Arkansas. Yeah, Hazelwood's
Yeah.
at Arkansas, and then
Hmm.
their whole D line and good defense was very, very veteran. Those are all NFL
Yeah.
players now going to the draft. So
Hmm.
Trevor put out a tweet saying next year when Texas plays OU, it's going to be like, who are these guys? And that's exactly what it's going to be like. It's going to be a completely new roster, and their recruiting class is solid, but it's not like blow you out of the water. It's not better than ours or as good as ours. So OU has a challenge, to get get a good roster that they believe can win the Big 12 because that's all they're accustomed to now. That's all they've ever known. That's their expectation is to win the Big 12 every year. So it's going to be crazy to see if they do have to take like a down year next year and kind of have a rebuilding year and seeing OU going 6-6 or something like that. That would be absolutely insane. And I think that's very much on the table, at least in the short term. I think the idea that they're going to just end up with 10, 11 wins next year is kind of insane. You can't really bank on that just with all the attrition they're seeing. It's just been gutted, this entire team and roster and program. So it's definitely, stressful times for OU fans. But I did see a tweet from an OU fan today saying, I can't wait for next year when we're going to blow out teams every week like we should have the last 5 years. It's like, okay, buddy, we'll see about that.
Yeah. Why you wait
So,
until now to say that?
they assume that Venables is the savior. And that's kind of like I was saying, we kind of seemed dumb when we were saying that with Herman and Strong now in hindsight. And I think they're kind of dumb thinking Venables is the savior as well. But I mean,
Yeah.
OU makes good hires, so we'll see. It could be a home run.
Yeah. That's definitely a possibility, but definitely something to look out for. But yeah, just somewhat, yeah. They're I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen with that program. You would only think that they'd land on their feet and they're gonna be okay. But I guess final thought with Oklahoma. Do you see Caleb Williams actually staying? Because Oklahoma put out the weirdest, what was it? Not a press release, but like announcement about like Caleb has entered the portal and we're here for him. And we still think that Oklahoma. I wanted to like die of laughter. It was the most like desperate, weirdest thing I've ever seen from Venables and like the Oklahoma football. It was so weird. Um, but do you think there's any chance of Williams like exploring his options and maybe just using this as leverage and coming back? Because he does seem to like Oklahoma, at least from a outside perspective. But
Not a chance. He's gone. He's so
yeah,
gone.
yeah, I
I
agree.
mean, the fact that they got Dylan Gabriel like a couple hours later just kind of
Yeah, they knew
like that.
they needed to cover their assets.
Yeah, Gabriel had the starting job at UCLA already locked down. He's not going to come to OU and sit behind Caleb Williams. So
Yeah,
that's all I need to know. Now the question is, where is he going to go? That's hopefully we find out soon. Because it's kind of it's going to change college football. It's going to change the landscape of at least the next couple of years. So we'll find out hopefully soon.
yeah, yeah. Well, cool. That was. I think we got a very long video completed. So if you're still watching, you're fantastic, and please drop a comment and say, "Hey, we're still here," just so we know. But yeah, we had a lot to say. Like I said, a month off, especially in what could have been the busiest time of the year, probably wasn't ideal. But hopefully, this video caught us all back up, and now we can get back into the routine of more regular content and providing some shorter, more concise, more specified videos for you guys. But any final parting shots or thoughts, Myers, before we wrap up this giant video?
No, not really. I mean, it's the off season now, so it sucks. Extra long off season, no bowl game, but I'm sure it'll go faster than we think, and it won't be long till we have Alabama and DKR, which will be a fun one for sure. So this one's going to be a fun off season because I mean, just the Quinn Ewers hype and this even the spring game's going to be a huge deal for us.
Oh
So
yeah,
we'll definitely
spring
have
will be big.
some content for y'all, and hopefully we start hearing some good reports out of workouts and spring practice whenever that rolls around. Because Quinn Ewers, he holds the keys to the kingdom. If Quinn Ewers is great, Texas will be great. and there's no reason that he's not great. So fingers crossed, but now you have to wait a little while, which sucks.
Yeah. But we'll be here to provide some content. Hopefully a little bit of fun content too, because we always like doing that in the off season. But yeah. Oh, final thought will be Alabama or Georgia.
Oh, Alabama, easily.
Yeah,
right?
They're kind of daddy. They're daddy to Georgia, even though Georgia I think has the better team. Yeah, Saban has owned Kirby in just about every matchup, and he does this with all of his assistant coaches. So I want to say Georgia. I want to say this is finally their year, but they got to prove it to me.
This is stupid. This is another year where, like in 2011, I think it was, where LSU won at Bama, and they have a rematch. Then if Bama wins, it's like, who on a neutral field, like who's the real champion? Like they went 1-1, 1-1 on the other team's turf.
Right.
Like,
right.
I don't like the. That's a different video for a different time, but the playoff and postseason needs to definitely be adjusted, I think, going forward.
Yeah. I mean, what can you do though? You know, if the two best teams are in the SEC, which they clearly were, you know, I think from basically Jump Street, you know, those were the two best teams. You know, Alabama had that one loss, but even then, you know.
Yeah, that's true. It's not easy fix.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank y'all for watching. Take care. We'll see you in the next one. And I was gonna say see you around signing day, but hopefully we got another video before signing day. But y'all take care. Horns up.